Hey everybody, this is Ivar Bjørnson from Enslaved, and you're now listening to the Progcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progcast. I'm your host Dario, and as you just heard, we have a guest calling from Norway today, and that is Ivar from Enslaved. Hi Ivar, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing? You okay?
Yes, thank you. I just finished my second listen to the new Enslaved album Utgard, and I'm super excited about this release, and of course we want to talk about this album in this episode. It is the 15th Enslaved album, and it's now that 2020 slowly but surely hopefully reaches its end, and 2021 might be better in a lot of aspects. 2020 is amazing when it comes to really a lot of great new prog music, but 2021 is not far away, and if I'm informed correctly, Enslaved was formed in 1991, so it's the 15th album, and soon it will be the 30th anniversary of Enslaved. When you formed the band back then with Grutle, did you ever think you will make it this far?
Oh, absolutely not. But on the other hand, we didn't think that we would make it that far. It was just we never had that perspective, man. Everything was about the next rehearsal, about the new song that we're working on, or saving up money for a special pedal that I wanted or something like that. Everything was just focused on the band the entire time. I guess it took some years before we realized, like, whoa, we've been doing this for a while now. And for me personally, I have to say that not until the 25th anniversary in 2016 did I think I really realized how long we've been going on. Until then, it's just been feeling like another day, you know? You don't want to think where I'm going to be in 5 years. That's what people do when they work in the advertisement business, not in the arts.
Yes. Coincidentally, I saw you guys for the very first time on that very 25th anniversary tour in 2016 here in Munich. I was not that familiar with the back catalog of the huge back catalog already. Of course, I knew you guys from reputation, and now that I'm also, since 2016 actually, that was like a turning point in my personal like music life, as I was before I was not that much into the extremer side of metal. But yeah, now I'm happy to know the music of Enslaved, and I have this kind of music in my life as well. So let's talk about the new album, Utgard, as we already established is the 15th Enslaved album. It's out on October the 2nd, and that is also the day this episode will drop.
Perfect.
It is the first album to feature a new drummer in your lineup. With Kato Beckevold, and the second album with a relatively new guy on the keyboard and clean vocals, with Håkon Vinje. So has there been any differences to making this album to the previous album production and writing phases?
Yeah, on like the basic stops are quite traditional in the Enslaved sense. I still write the music on my own, and then when I have what I feel is the structure for a song, I try to demo it and I don't try to not overdo it. Like there's no point in trying to make the drum machine sound like a real drummer and make all kinds of interesting things happen. it's just a show, you know. It's a 6x8, or if it's a 7x8 or whatever, to illustrate sort of the tempo and the vibe, or if there's a contrast to be made. I want to illustrate that, like typical is like slow drums, fast guitar, that kind of stuff. But I demo that and send it to the guys, and then they start working on the vocals, and that was really important this time because there was such a motivated bunch of singers, with Ivar coming in and working with Grutle and also Håkon. So it has been, I think what we realized, and this is nothing bad about like the previous members at all, you know, we're still very good friends, but both Herbrand, the previous clean singer, keyboardist, and Kato, the ex-drummer, the reason for leaving the band was the same, is that they both had a feeling that they'd been doing it for too long, you know. They were approaching 50, and when you're approaching 50, you can either think that I found the thing in my life, I want to be an old guy looking like, my ambition is to be, you know, get a beard like Billy Gibbons from CC Top, and a haircut like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and still do what I do.
I'm joining you there.
Perfect. But some people feel that, okay, now is probably the last chance to do something else. And that's what both Herbrand and Kato were feeling. Like they didn't want to travel anymore. They want to, you know, spend more time with family, cultivate some hobbies, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have to accept and respect that for some people, it can actually be very tempting to go back to a 9 to 4 career. And I think we notice that now, that it's probably been quite hard on them, because when we have Ivar and Håkon, who are very much decided on this is what they want to do forever. Håkon is crazy, man. He's born in 92, 1 year after the band was started. When he was 8 years old, he told his father that he pointed at John Lords on the television for some concert, said, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. Like, who does that? Wow. And Ivar is a professional record producer.
Yeah, you've been working with him before, actually, right?
Yes.
He already worked on the production of the previous album, right?
Yeah, since 2010 he's been involved. So
wow.
Now everyone like was really in the same tempo, and that just made everything. It was so easy for me to write the music because I felt so inspired by being a part of this band. That was an extremely long way of saying that these new guys bring inspiration.
Sounds great, and you especially mentioned the work on the vocals, and it shows from the very first second, as the first song, Fires in the Dark, yes, starts with an a cappella section, actually.
Yeah.
Will you be doing that live as well, just like that?
Yeah, I think we want to do that. We've been doing it a few times, like when we were rehearsing, and then all of a sudden we're jamming a little bit, and then we try to do that, and it still works. It's a miracle, because it was at the end of the last recording session, the last recording day. We have this tradition: we go to Grutle, the singer's place, we bring Ivar's mobile studio, and then we try out all the crazy ideas that we didn't do in the serious studio, in a sense, and that makes a lot of great effects, a lot of great leads and stuff, that because it's a little bit more informal, you know. And when we were finished, we were like, okay, that's it. And then Ivar said, we should do one more thing. We should do an opening for the album a cappella. And we said, okay, we try me and Arve, the other guitarist. We're the only two guys who doesn't really sing. So we said, are you sure you want to have us too? And they, yes, just give it a try. And we did that in one take. And I still can't figure out how we managed to do clean notes.
That's impressive. But it works perfectly. Tying in, let's go from the beginning to the end of the album. What struck me really was the last two songs. That is the more or less title track, of course, Storms of Utgard, and then Distant Seasons. In both songs, towards the end, there's like some super amazing guitar solos. I
Oh
guess
yeah.
from Arve, or who?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Arve is the second longest serving enslaved member, apart from Grutle and you, of course.
Mm.
So I he joined 18 years ago, so his membership in the band has now reached adulthood.
Yeah, and nobody can call him the new guy for sure. No, he's definitely very much part of the fabric of Enslaved, and we would never be where we are in terms of developing the sound without him. He's one of my favorite lead guitarists. Like not like a because he's a friend and he's a cool guy, but like from his the feeling he has on the notes and I respect that so much that he has the technical abilities. When the rest of us was playing Smoke on the Water in the rehearsal rooms, he quit school at some point just so he can stay at home all day and practice the scales and the quick fingers, you know. So he's really sacrificed a lot to get there. But he knows when to do that and when to just pull like one note, a long one, and bend it and feel it. He's got a diversity that is insane, from jazz to black metal and all the way back to experimental music. He has a new band now called Drott, which sounds like Quentin Tarantino meets a folk band and then they smoke crack. So that's going to be a really interesting one.
Do they have some music out already?
No, they're about to release their first EP, which is going to be right after Christmas, and that's
okay. I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for that. That sounds super intriguing. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have put something into the playlist, into
yeah.
the accompanying playlist to this episode. One last thing about the music on Utgard. I think it was the third single. Please help me with the pronunciation. Urjotun.
Yeah. Hey, that sounded pretty Norwegian, man.
Thank you. So that I found this song in particular very, very interesting from a compositional standpoint, as it has this psychedelic intro going on for a couple of minutes, and then suddenly there's this big change and it gets really, really dark with the vocals. Where did this where do you get the inspiration from, yeah, not taking the standard songwriting paths, but yeah, doing something different, actually something progressive, if you want?
Yeah, a lot of the inspiration for that song comes from where you're at, from Germany.
Okay.
It's what people call it Krautrock. I really prefer the German term, which was Kosmische Musik, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Cosmic. That's what it is for me. It reminds me more of the cosmic music than of Kraut. And we're really big fans of the pioneers from the 70s, the sequencer heroes, Klaus Schulze, Tangerine Dream, Edgar Froese, all those guys. And also there's a lot of important artists, like you can hear on that second part when everything drops down and becomes dark. Grutle is singing and he's going into some kind of weird, almost David Bowie-ish thing that we're inspired by Bowie's German period when he was working with Brian Eno and doing that sort of more industrial thing. So, and of course Kraftwerk is part of it with the whole sort of repetitive pattern. For me, when I wrote the song, it was I think it's the first time that I've written something where you have one constant and then you write sort of different pieces to accompany that. So you have the sequencer pattern that's running all the way through the song, and it's kind of hard to hear it in the mix because there's so many elements, but it really changes it's the same pattern still being repeated, but in contrast with that new sounding riff, which you correctly described as quite dark. It sounds very different, and like an audio illusion almost, that I find really interesting.
Yeah, I will try to hear that underlying synth pattern next time I listen to the album. Actually, you mentioned Kraftwerk and Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schulze, all these pioneers, and that reminded me of one of my favorite albums of this year so far, and I never expected it would become that, because I had the opportunity to interview the drummer of a Swedish band, Gösta Berling's Saga, Alex Schepp. And the first time I listened to their new album, Konkret Musik, I didn't really find a way into the music. And because I knew I had the interview coming up, I tried to get into it. And then, like, I kept listening, and and at one point I couldn't stop listening because it had grabbed me, and it it's at one point I was kind of becoming addicted to this kind of very repetitive style that you were describing.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of interesting things in others. It's not that obvious, the influence, but in newer minimalistic classical music, Philip Glass and Steve Reich, especially Steve Reich's music for 18 musicians. Mm-hmm. It's really incredible to listen to how they compose and how they write using repetition. It's really fascinating. I had no idea that was sort of a skill or a class of music on its own. Philip Glass was here in town a couple of years ago, and I went and saw the opening concert of a classical festival where they were playing his piece. Wow. And the local symphony orchestra were playing Philip Glass music. Normally they sound impressive, but I have to say this is the first time they sounded like crap, because they really couldn't do that. Keep his, the oscillates, the four notes or five sometimes, just to make it uneven. To keep that in a perfect loop with small adjustments to the dynamics up and down over a period of 20, maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah. That's actually a very good recommendation. Right now, I really want to go back and revisit some of Phil Glass's work. There's especially one that I have like an LP box from my parents, which is the opera Akhenaten, which I discovered as a child, way before I got into Koyanis Katsi and all that. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to listening to a little bit of Phil Glass later, I guess, and we can also add some to the playlist maybe. Going back to Enslaved music, we were talking about the music on Utgard already, but with Enslaved, it's always so intriguing that you guys are having these influences from Norse mythology, and so why don't you enlighten us a little bit topically what Utgard is all about?
Yeah, I think you can see it as two or normally we operate with three layers. So you have the surface one, which is the literal quality of it, right? Which is basically the same way as any other lyric or poem or whatever. you don't have to, you can still. I think it's still well written in the sense that it's musical language and and it's sung very well by the singers. And then you can go and look at what the story. What is the story? What is the concept? And this is a particular part of Norse mythology that is not that well known. It's not become part of the mainstream narrative yet. It's very popular with the Norse gods and everything, and with the Marvel movies. We all know Asgard, the home of the gods, where Odin, Thor, and all those classics live,
Yeah.
and where the dead warriors go, the brave ones and so on. There's a wall around Asgard that was built, which was coincidentally the topic for our previous album, E. Had a lot to do with that particular part of the mythology. They built this defensive fence around the entire Asgard because they were very worried about the inhabitants of Utgard would make some kind of attack against Asgard, because the problem there, the tension between the gods and the giants are primeval beings. They're the first ones in the creational myths of Norse mythology. They're very powerful and have various, as in any mythology, magical abilities, magical weapons, all that. But they can't really be controlled or manipulated like the gods can do with, for instance, humans and so on. Because the giants were there before the gods. They're very ancient creatures and chaotic, uncontrollable. And that's when you approach the third layer, which I guess we are inspired a lot by Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, using these parts of mythology where Utgard becomes sort of a very potent metaphor for the unconscious, where you can, has a lot of resources. It's a fantastic source of creativity, of humor, surprises, and some very beautiful things, like our dreams sometimes when they're at their most beautiful. That's the language of the unconscious, but it can't really be controlled. You can't really tell yourself, I want to dream about this and this tonight. I want to dream that I'm the keyboard player in Deep Purple and my name is John Lord. That's not how it works. And that's some of what this album is about. It's going out of the ordered and the safe zone and traveling into this land where things are more uncertain and shadowy, to sort of get a more integrated whole, in a sense, where both once chaotic, disorganized, but creative and also exciting part is integrated with the rational, conscious side.
Okay, that was super interesting. I somehow didn't expect that third layer, but it's super intriguing. I'm looking forward to diving into the lyrics as well. That was the album, so to speak. Let's talk about what happened this year. I mean, this year is very, very special and weird. And you guys were actually one of the first of the bigger bands that back in April, on April 1st, actually, if I recall right, you had a big live streaming concert event from the Ferftet Online Music Festival. I think it was from Bergen, right? From this your hometown.
This is our hometown.
Yeah. Okay. So and that was not that didn't remain the only event of this sort. You actually did a cinematic summer tour with 3 very different concepts maybe you wanna tell us what these three different concepts were and how you came up with them.
Yeah, the Cinematic Summer Tour was an idea that came about very shortly after the VAFTA Online Festival, which was more coincidental. They wanted 12 Bergen bands to be doing that festival. It was a big happening, and we were asked because we're known to say yes to things that some other people need time to think about. We like to dive in and then check the waters once we're already in it. But after, it was such a positive experience, and we really saw, hey, there is actually, it might not be the same as a live concert, but this is pretty damn close. We were communicating with people, they were sending photos of themselves watching the gig, blah, blah, blah. So we got to do something. And then we came up with this Cinematic Summer Tour. The first one was a collaboration with Roadburn Festival in the Netherlands. And we wanted to honor the fans that have been supporting us so heavily through this year with the new album being postponed, and people are like, "Hey, no problem, we'll be ready for it when it comes." So we asked them to vote for which songs they wanted to hear, which was a bit scary, but it ended up with pretty much exactly the exact same list as we would have voted ourselves, which was incredible. And we played the top 7 voted for songs. Those were the ones we played. And then we did a month later in collaboration with Beyond the Gates Festival here in Bergen, which is a bit more of a extreme metal festival. We did the entire Below the Lights album from 2003, even including the extra guitarist that we had with us in the studio, which was really awesome, because that is, except from the last of, we always love our last album the most, but except from that, Below the Lights will, I think, always be my favorite, because it's such a special moment in Enslaved's history when we just like lose the last of the shackles that we felt we had to, adhere to some rules about how things should sound. We're just like, fuck it, we're gonna play whatever we want, and that's what it. And it sounded great. So that was a special concert. And then yesterday, the day before release, we did a release party where we played half the new album and did a bunch of other weird stuff.
That super cool concept, and great that it was in collaboration with these festivals that were not supposed to take place this year. Unfortunately, I would have been at Summer Breeze. Of course, it's not far from here, and I was there the last 2 years. Actually, last year I was there also with my recording equipment and did interviews with a couple of prog bands playing there. So we might have met there maybe next year then. Fingers crossed. You guys have plans already for actual live gigs?
We have a lot of plans, but we're going to be, I think we all learned a lesson from the beginning of this pandemic when everybody was announcing new dates, and then you had to move them like the second and the third and the fourth time. It started becoming ridiculous. So now we have plans that are ready, but we are waiting. The promoters, they know their local and their national governments, and they are the ones to decide when they want to go out with it. But let's just say that the minute the gates open, we will be the first one running out of them.
Awesome! I can't wait. I can't wait to see those new songs being performed. As I said, I saw you guys on the 25th anniversary tour, together with Nei Oblivskaris and Oceans of Slumber, and that was a great concert. That was a great package.
Oh yes, that's a fun tour, man.
Ending this interview, or we always like to also ask our interview guests about their favorites, current favorite songs, and this little section we like to call "What's in Your Walkman." So, may I ask you what you've been listening to lately, and that we could add to the playlist, some recommendation for your fans?
Let me have a look here. The last few things I listened to was the Gateways to Annihilation by Morbid Angel. I just felt a very urgent need to hear that a few days back. Then we have, I don't think you can put that on a playlist, Time Win, the album Klaus Schulze, because it's like all 29 minutes, all the songs. The new Napalm Death I've been listening to. Wow, I haven't listened to prog this week. Mr. Bungle, does that qualify as prog?
Yeah, I guess.
The self-titled album. I just have to go back and listen to that every now and then because it's so refreshing.
Any songs from the album? Any particular song that stood out?
Let me see. Yeah, let's go with Squeeze Me Macaroni. That's a good one. Then we have, oh wow, I've been listening a lot to music lately. Triptykon, the Milana Chasmat album.
Yes.
They're all good songs. You choose one, and then I don't know do you know Intronaut?
Yes, I saw them live on a double headliner tour with Shining from Norway.
There you go. The opening song from the previous album called The Direction of Lost Things, the opening song there called Fast Worms, that one I've been listening a lot to during the summer and now this autumn. And then, of course, the rest of the album too, but I just have to go back and listen and check out. It's such a refreshing start of an album. And very funny guys too.
Yeah. I have some recommendations as well, as always, in my Walkman this week, were a new album from the Reticent, a band called the Reticent, and the album is called The Oubliette. It's about Alzheimer's, a concept album. It's insane. This one guy doing everything except for the lead guitar solos, I think, and there's one song on the album called The Nightmare, and fittingly it's a really prog metal concept album. The Nightmare is kind of the most extreme song on the album, and it's got amazing brass orchestrations on there, and it goes into Dimmu Borgir territory there, and he manages to pull off both the Shagrath and the ICS Vortex thing there vocally, which is really, really impressive.
What was the name of the album again? Sorry.
The Reticent, The Oubliette.
Yeah. The Oubliette.
Oh. Yes. And cool. From your tour mates from back then, Oceans of Slumber, the new album is so far my album of the year. And the second song on the album is called Pray for Fire, and it's really, really powerful. So I want to add that to the playlist, and just very shortly, not just now, Zeal and Ardor from Switzerland dropped another new song called Tuskegee, and they have an EP out, Wake of a Nation, on 23rd of October, I just saw. So I'm going to add that one as well. I think that fits very well with the Enslaved, with an Enslaved playlist, actually, as I will, of course, add the new singles, the singles from the new album, Utgard, and a best of Enslaved. If you would be so kind and just write me your favorite tracks from all of the Enslaved albums in the chat here, that would be cool. If you are up for that.
I will do that.
So it's an Ivar curated best of Enslaved set list plus our what's in your Walkman recommendations. Lastly, I woke up today and I had Pink Floyd in my mind, and I want to add a very odd one out, and it's from the 80s album A Momentary Lapse of Reason. It's I think Terminal Frost it was called. It's the one Well, it's actually, I think it's 3 different songs, like this vocoder style a cappella intro, and then an instrumental track, and then the same theme a cappella style as an outro. So a triple, if you want. I'm just pulling it up here. Yeah, a New Machine Part 1, then Terminal Frost, and a New Machine Part 2. That's gonna be the end of the playlist. I just woke up with this song in mind. I actually gonna go now and listen to it because, yeah, it's cool.
I'll do that too. Okay, man.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for taking time. All the best with the release of Utgard, and hope to see you on the road very soon. Thank you so much, Ivar.
Thanks, man. I'll be with you with that list shortly.
Okay, cool. So for our listeners, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and listen to great music.
The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is presented by the Prog Space. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stango-Lewis, Blake Lewis, Kai Metzner, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant.